In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can draw this cute kawaii cookie using the iPad in Procreate. Today's tutorial is based off of the day one prompt bake from my April 2020 drawing challenge called Draw in Place. If you want to learn more about that and how you can possibly have your artwork featured in an upcoming video on this channel, keep watching. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the video today. For this tutorial, I'm using the new 2020 iPad Pro. This is a Gen 4 model along with the Gen 2 Apple Pencil. The app is Procreate. And for this cute little kawaii cookie that you saw in the intro, we're going to use a 3000 by 3000 pixel canvas size at 300 DPI. So I've got that all set up and ready to go. The brushes for this tutorial, I'm going to be using some of my cartooning brushes as well as texture brushes. Those I have available for purchase on Gumroad right now. I will link those in the description below if you want to hop on over, support the channel, and buy those. You're more than welcome to, or if you just want to follow along with some basic brushes that are included in Procreate, you can do that as well. It's up to you. But I am making this palette available online for free. You can hop on over to my website, bjdell.com, and download the palette so you can follow along with the exact same colors that I'm using. I will link that in the description as well. So let's get started. This cookie today is going to be based on my April 2020 art challenge that I just started. It's called Draw in Place, and day one was bake. So we're going to draw a cookie for bake, and we're going to start on layer one here. And I'm going to use my standard inker streamline, and I'm just going to draw a circle starting out. This is just going to be the basic shape for the cookie. So if you are using the iPad and Procreate, if you hold down your Apple Pencil at this point and then hold down your other finger, this will lock in a perfect circle, and then you can just drag and drop the color into there. And then we're just going to move this down a little bit by pressing that arrow there and just kind of get this centered. So there we go. We've got our basic cookie shape. Next thing I'm going to do is I want to make some kind of cutout marks here for the teeth. Like it's been bitten into, just adds a little bit of character to it. So I'm going to go to that standard inker streamline under my eraser, and I'm just going to kind of carve out some little half circles here. Just kind of having those come together at that nice taper there. It's going to allow us to kind of add a three-dimensional feel to this. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and switch back to our regular brush here. Then we're going to change the color, and I want to go to this brown that's next to that base cookie color. So we've changed our color. Now we're going to go ahead and make a new layer. So by going to our layers menu, we're going to hit the plus button here to make a new layer. And we're going to drag and drop this behind. Basically what I'm going to do with this one is make some little slivers here to kind of make this look a little more three-dimensional. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see it a little bit easier. So what we're going to do is just kind of drag, starting here at this corner, just drag this down at an angle and then kind of follow it along into a curve. You don't have to really worry about getting it perfect the first time because we're going to go back in with the eraser and kind of line everything up. Little quick tip here, if you are using Procreate to get a perfect line, if you start the line, make this a little bit smaller. If you start the line, drag and hold your pen down or your pencil down, you'll see that it locks in a perfect line, and you can use that to really get a nice straight line if you have problems drawing it freehand. So we're just going to kind of follow this around and do the same thing for the rest of these. So again, I'm not really worrying about making it perfect the first time because I can always go back in and erase. This is one of those times too where zooming in to get closer is really going to help you kind of make sure that all these match up. So there we go. And we got one more here. Let me go back here and erase this one a little bit more to make it a little bit more apparent that there's a little bit more of a curve there. Okay, and we'll have to go back here to our layer 2 that's underneath and fix that there. And then we're going to drag this out and down and around just like we did with the other ones. So like I said, what this is going to do is really going to build up kind of the start of that three-dimensional quality. And then that's even going to be more apparent once we go in and start shading too. So there we go. We've got the start of our cookie. Next thing let's do is give this guy some eyes. So let's go back up to our colors here. And the next one over, I've got this one. It might look a little bit black on there, but it's really, really deep brown, almost to black. So let's go ahead and make a circle. Oops, let's make a new layer first. So let's hit plus button again. Let's drag this on top of the layer 1, which is the body of the cookie. And we're just going to drag around here and make a circle for the eye. Drag and drop that in there. And then let's go ahead and switch to white. I'm just going to hold down here to select white. I do have this in the color palette if you want to go up there and select it, but we'll just do it from there. And then I'm going to just make a circle here for the first highlight of the eye. It's going to kind of give it that little kawaii shine. So we're going to do a big one there, and then we're just going to do a smaller one down here. So we've got eye number 1. This is going to be a little bit bigger than I want to go with though. So I'm going to go back up here to my arrow, and I'm going to shrink this guy down. Move him in just a little bit, and there we go. So we've got our left eye. Next thing, let's go back up to our layers menu, and let's slide this to the left. And we're going to duplicate this. So we've got 2 different eyes here. So we can move this other one in place. So if we go to the arrow again, we want to make sure that we've got uniform selected and magnetic. Magnetic is nice because it's going to lock this in. So when we drag this across, you see that blue line tells us that that is right where it needs to be. It's not going up, it's not going down. It's perfectly in line with that other eye. So now that we've got those done, we can go ahead and pinch these together to kind of save some layers there in case you're using an iPad that doesn't get as many layers. And from here, let's go ahead and work on the mouth. So let's go ahead and make a new layer by hitting that plus button again. And we're going to go up to our color palette again. And let's go with down at the end here. It's this kind of pinkish purple color. Let's go ahead and select that one. This is going to be our mouth. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and just make a circle once again here. Lock that in like so, drag and drop. Now I'm going to go up to my arrow here. Now that I've got that selected, we'll select freeform now. Instead of making a circle, let's kind of smash it down a little bit, and let's make it more of an ellipse. We'll get this kind of centered in here. This is not going to be how we want the mouth to look, but here's just a fun way to do this. Makes it really easy with Procreate. Now that we've got that locked in, let's go ahead and go up to our eraser and let's just drag straight across. We're going to get a nice perfect line across there and just erase the rest of that top portion. So we're left with this cute little mouth, which then we can go ahead and adjust and move this a little bit closer here towards the center. Let's turn off magnetic now so we've got a little bit more control over it. And there we go. We've got the mouth set right there in the center. So let's add some details to the mouth now. Here's where clipping masks come in, so we're going to talk about that. If you've watched my channel before and followed along with some of my Procreate tutorials, you might be familiar, but for first-time viewers, this might be something new for you, but it really is a valuable thing. So let's make a new layer once again. Let's change our color, and we're going to go to pink this time. We've got that selected, and once again, we're just going to draw a oval here, and we're going to drag and drop. Now, if you go back up here to layers, make sure that we're on that pink circle or oval that we just did, and we're going to set this as clipping mask. And you're going to see what it's going to do is it's going to hide everything that's outside of the mouth area. Since this layer is on top of this one, it's going to use the information from layer 4 for the clipping mask. So as soon as we hit that, it makes everything down here disappear. So it comes in really handy to kind of hide certain things like that. If you want to make something and not have to erase, it's going to do that hiding or masking for you. So now that we've got that set, let's go ahead and slide this one to the left, and we're going to duplicate this layer. So we've got 2 of these pink ovals. We're going to select the bottom one here and go up to our arrow again. And then we're going to kind of just dip this down a little bit, make it a little bit smaller, and kind of move it here to the right. So now we've got a left-hand side of the tongue and the right-hand side of the tongue. Let's go ahead and give this guy some teeth as well. So I'm going to select white there, and let's go ahead and make a new layer. We're going to set this one to clipping mask as well. And when you have multiple layers like this stacked on top of each other, they still clip to that initial one. So it's going to keep going down to whatever is the one that is underneath the first clipping mask. So once we start drawing in these teeth, you're going to see it clips in there. I'm drawing out here, there's nothing there. So it makes it, once again, really nice to kind of stay inside the area that you're going for. And then I'm going to go ahead and just select this mouth color here. We'll just draw a line here in the center for the kind of breaking in the teeth there. And let's go back in with white to kind of clean these up. Just make it like a nice sharp line once again. Whoops. Once again, using that drag and hold to kind of get that sharp line. And there we go. So we've got the mouth done. Let's go ahead from here and start adding in some chocolate chips. So let's go back to the layer of the cookie itself, and we'll make a new layer that goes on top of that. And for the color, let's go back up to our color palette, and we'll select this kind of rich brown color right there. And this is going to be our chocolate chip color. Once again, I'm still using the standard inker brush. And then I'm just going to go ahead and draw in some chocolate chips around here. Really no right or wrong way to do this, no rhyme or reason to it. Kind of my thought process here is just making sure that they're all different shapes, different sizes. Don't get them too close together, but don't make it really like a repeating pattern. You kind of want some randomness to this. So that's kind of the idea here that we're going for. So we'll just go around and fill these in just kind of haphazardly. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller and zoom in a little bit so you can see it better here. Then if you get some kind of wonky lines here, you can kind of zoom in and clean those up either with your brush, or you can go back in with the eraser too and do that as well. Once again, this is the part if you're following along with at home, you can definitely make it your own just by throwing these in wherever. You don't have to follow along and do these exactly where I'm putting them. And as I do these, I will tell you guys about the Draw in Place challenge. I know a lot of people sitting at home are bored out of their minds and they want to draw something, but are kind of short on ideas or want a little bit more motivation. So I started the Draw in Place April 2020 challenge. I've got the list of prompts on my Facebook group called Keep Creating, a Learn, Draw, Share Art Community, which I will link in the description below. It's also available on Instagram or Twitter. You can find me on there at BJDell, but you can download the list, share it on your Instagram or Twitter or wherever you have social media so you can encourage other people to take part in it. But basically there's a prompt for every single day of the month of April to kind of keep you guys motivated and keep you creating throughout the month. If you're stuck at home, if you're quarantined or doing the self-isolation type of thing, definitely take part in this challenge and post your designs online. If you post them on Instagram or Twitter, make sure you tag me at BJDell, and then also make sure you hashtag them with Draw in Place. That's how everybody else is going to see your work. So there we go. We've got all the chocolate chips in here now, and that's pretty much the basic cookie. So a lot of people could, if you wanted to, stop here, and this would be a really cute design, but we're gonna go in with some of the texture brushes and make this thing pop a little bit more and make it look a little bit more realistic. So let's start on that now. The first thing that I wanna do is kind of knock in the eyes a little bit. So we're gonna go down here and let's make a new layer. This is gonna go below the eyes. And for the color, we're just gonna pick, let's pick white to go ahead and start out with. For the brush, I'm gonna use my soft fabric brush, and you'll see here what I want to do is kind of make underneath the eyes just a little bit of a sliver of white. So I'm going to start here in the center and kind of pull it down because I don't want, oops, I'm on eraser. I don't want there to be too much of this hanging out here. So if you start in the center and pull it down, it's going to help you have a lot more control over where that little highlight's going to go. So starting here in the center and just slowly pulling it down, you've got a lot of control over how far that goes. If you start down here, you're gonna come down way too far and you're gonna have to play around with the brush size quite a bit. So with this, you can kind of just go back and forth and build it up like so. Now that we've got those little highlight slivers underneath the eyes, let's go ahead and do the same thing underneath the bottom of the mouth. Once again, we're gonna stay on that same layer, and we're gonna use that same technique starting up here in the center of the mouth and just kind of drag that down so it's got a nice little sliver of a highlight there that kind of shows you that that bottom lip is sitting right there. So we've got that locked in now. Let's go ahead and go back up to our layers. We're going to make a new layer here, and we're going to drag it underneath this one. So we've got the kind of highlights here. This one's going to be for the shadows underneath those eyes. So let's go ahead and switch our color now. We're going to go to black. And then for this one, I'm going to switch my brush. I'm actually going to use a brush that is a pre-included brush with Procreate. We're going to go to the airbrushing and just go to the soft airbrush. And we're going to use the same technique here. And we're just going to build up this really kind of light shadow so it makes the eyes kind of look inset into the cookie here. So you can see those are starting to build up. With here, you just have to kind of adjust the size and the opacity here. You don't want it too dark, don't want it too light. Just take your time to build these up really nice, just like that. And then we're going to do the same thing underneath the white. So starting here on the left, we're going to kind of drag a shadow around here to kind of make those stand out a little bit more as well. Let me zoom in here just a little bit so you can see. You'll see that's really starting to kind of build up that three-dimensional quality to that eye there. Going a little bit harder and darker here on the right. So I plan on having the light source come in here from the top left-hand corner. So once again, just do this underneath. Whoops, switch back to the eraser there. And just kind of build this up and around. Like I said, it's very light, just that back and forth motion to give that effect there. So that looks really good. So now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and add some shadows into this part back here with the cookie. So let's go to our layer 2, and we're going to set this to alpha lock. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to color in directly on that layer without going outside. Works kind of like the clipping mask we talked about up here. So let's kind of zoom in here so we can see a little bit more. So I'm wanting the shadow to be a little bit heavier here, because where the cookie kind of overlaps here on the edge, that's going to have a little bit heavier of a shadow. And then along that top edge, we're going to add a little bit heavier of a shadow there too. Just like this. And if you go too dark, don't worry about it. You can go back in and erase, or what we can do too is we can go back in with that base color. So if we select that brown that we've already done and kind of lighten that up if we go a little bit too dark by mistake, and you'll see that's really starting to build up that three-dimensional quality even more. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and work on the tongue and the mouth here. So let's go ahead and go to the right-hand part of the tongue. We're going to change our color palette up here, and we're going to go to this color here next to that pink. This is kind of like a darker red version of that inside part of the mouth. I'm going to switch back to my brush here, and we're going to go back to my texture brush and go to that soft fabric. Using that same technique here, I want to start kind of inside this part over here. You'll see it's not drawing anything because we've got the clipping mask, or the alpha lock actually set. So actually we need to do the alpha lock here. Hold on, let me back up. So on this layer, let's go ahead and hit alpha lock. So like I said, with that one up here, it's going to keep everything inside that pink color that we've already done. So you'll see as we start to kind of build this up, it's going to stay inside there. We're going to go ahead and select the other side of the tongue, hit alpha lock again, and do the exact same thing over here. So we're starting heavier and harder here at the bottom and fading up to the top. Now I'm going to go ahead and select white because I kind of want to highlight coming across the top of the tongue. So we're going to do that as well. Then we're going to make this a little bit smaller brush size, and we're going to do a little harder, brighter highlight there along the top. And then we're going to switch over to the right-hand side of the tongue and do the exact same thing for that side. So once again, just a really kind of light grazing on there, making the brush smaller and going in harder there on the top highlight really makes that pop, like you can see. Let's add some shadows to the inside of the mouth now. So let's go back up to our palette here, and let's go ahead and select just the black color here. We got that selected. I think that one, let me see. Let me go back to the disc and make sure. This one I selected, it's a blackish red. It's not totally black, so that's gonna work out a little bit better inside the mouth. So if we go to the mouth here, we're gonna alpha lock this as well. Make sure our brush is set to that soft fabric again. And going on that mouth layer, just kind of start to drag in from the side here, going pretty heavy. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Going pretty heavy towards the beginning and letting up as we go across. We'll do the same thing on this side here too. So it's going to fade in there towards the center, gives a nice three-dimensional feel to it. And then let's do the teeth as well. So let's go ahead and set this one to alpha lock. Let's go to an actual black here. So let's go back to our palette and select black. Just kind of make this smaller, go along top. So the top of the mouth there, the lip is kind of given a shadow there. And then along this right-hand side, it's going to be a shadow as well. Kind of makes that three-dimensional. And then we're going to make a little bit of a three-dimensional lip here on the top too. So if we go back to our black that we did with the eyes and the mouth here, we're going to go to that one. We're going to switch back to our airbrushing. And using our soft airbrush and the black, we're going to go in along the top of that mouth and kind of make this look a little bit more three-dimensional. Just really light there on the top, bringing it down to the sides here, like so. Then I'm going to make this really small here. I'm going to kind of just go in almost like a little triangle angle here in the corners of the mouth, just to kind of show that that has a little bit more dimension too. Once you pull back out, you can kind of see how that kind of folds in on itself and looks really neat. So there we go. That's pretty much doing the highlights and the shadows for the mouth and the eyes. Let's go ahead and add some more dimension to the overall cookie itself. So let's go back to the cookie chocolate chips, and let's set this one to alpha lock. So we've got that set, and let's go to, let's go to this orange color. This is going to add just a really nice warm highlight to it. So let's go back to the texture brushes. We're going to use soft fabric for this one. And we're just going to start to go in here, and just like we did down here, we're going to kind of build up this highlight around. Just like this. So the light source is coming in from this top left-hand corner. So we kind of want just this to fade here from the top down. You're going to have kind of a heavier, more saturated color here towards the top. Kind of bring it down towards the bottom. You can adjust your size as you go around too. These smaller ones, they might take a little bit of a smaller brush. You might be filling up a little bit too much of the chocolate chip. You'll see, even though this is an orange color with it laying on top of the brown, it really kind of gives that nice warm glow to it that really looks like a really cool highlight on there. So now that we've got that, let's add in some really bright highlights. So let's go ahead and select white now, and we're going to go back over top what we just did. And this one's going to be there towards that top. And once again, just kind of playing around with the pressure that you apply. You don't want to knock out all that orange that we just did. You don't want to fill the entire thing up. So you just want that top kind of corner to have that nice bright white highlight on there. Like so. There we go. So we've got the chocolate chips really kind of looking three-dimensional now. Let's go ahead and let's go back to, we can do this to save layers. Let's go ahead and go to this shadow layer that we did for the eyes and the mouth. And let's go back to the black color here. And then we're going to add in some shadows here with that soft fabric brush just underneath the back side of these chocolate chips. So it's going to make these pop a little bit more. They're going to stand out and they're going to look like they're kind of sunken in to the actual cookie. Once again, just playing around with the pressure and the size of the brush, how hard you push is really going to be kind of the success factor in this. So definitely play around with it. If you need to go back and forth and get the right pressure to make this look, you know, realistic, that's kind of what we're aiming for. I say realistic, but of course, you know, this being a super cute kawaii cartoon type cookie, I think that's one of the fun things, to combine this like super realistic shading technique with something super cartoony like this, because it just works well together and looks really cool. So we've got all these laid in here. You can see now that's making those pop even more as well. It gives a really nice look. So let's start on the actual cookie now. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see, make a new layer here. This one's going to be in between. Actually, we'll put this up on top. So we've got the mouth here, everything there, and the eyes are above this, and then this is going to be above everything else here. So it's going to be kind of in the middle. And then we're going to go to the texture brush, which is sand. For the color, we're going to go with, let's go with this brown here. And let's start to lay in some of the sand texture. So what we want to do here is, let's go ahead and we'll set these to clipping mask. Actually, let me move these around here for a second. Let me drop these down. Set this one to clipping mask. Set this one to clipping mask. Set this one to clipping mask. And we'll set this one to clipping mask. So that's going to keep us inside now. And then let's go ahead. I'm going to make the sand here pretty big. And I'm going to start to just kind of color in along this right-hand side like so. Once again, with this, really going light on this, not super hard. Just want to kind of build up that texture. Don't want to go in too dark because we're going to go in darker here in a second, and I'll show you how. So for here, we're going to go back in with a black color now. So switch this to black, and we're going to switch back to that soft airbrush. I like to use the soft airbrush in combination with the texture brushes because you can really kind of darken everything up on top of the texture. So staying on that same layer, we're going in with that soft airbrush, and we're going to go back and around this like so, just to make that a little bit darker around the edges. It's going to make that pop just a little bit more. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's select, let's see, go back to our palette here. This kind of creamy yellow color, we're going to use that for some of the highlights within the cookie. So let's go back to our texture brush here, go back to sand, and on that same layer, we're going to go back in here and just kind of add in, oops, we actually need this one underneath. Let's do this one directly on layer 1. How about that? So let's set layer 1 to alpha lock. And just going in here and adding in some fun highlights. Once again, just kind of adjusting the size of the brush so you don't get too big in certain areas, don't get too small in others, and just adding some highlights in throughout there really starts to kind of build up the overall texture of the piece. And then we can even go back in on the edges here and kind of knock in some brighter white around there too. So that looks really good. Next thing I want to do is kind of add some more dimension to the ends of the cookie around the sides. We're going to make this thing kind of look like it curves down upon itself. So we're going to go back to black here. And then on this one, I want to go and make a new layer on top of our base cookie layer here. And for this one, we're going to use the airbrush again. So we're going to switch back to airbrush here, soft airbrush. And we want this to go around the edges. So you'll see as we start to do this, it's going to look like it's got kind of that shadow along the side. It's almost like the cookie's kind of, you know, rolling over there. And then of course down here, we're gonna have to go a little bit darker because we went, you know, darker with the shadow here. So once again, it's just kind of back and forth with your pressure, finding out exactly how dark you want to go and kind of building it up from there. So there is that. Let's see what else we need to do. I think that's pretty much it, to be honest with you. Of course, since the artwork is finished, the last thing we need to do, I'm just going to make a new layer here. You don't have to follow along with this unless you want to, because this is the signature part. So I'm just going to go ahead and get a standard inker here and just knock in a quick signature. So there we go. There is our cookie. This is basically, like I said, day one from the April 2020 Draw in Place Challenge. This is the actual list of prompts. All 30 days, you guys can do one a day. If you want to do every single day, all 30, you can pick and choose and do only a couple here and there. It doesn't even have to be in order, but definitely want to see what you guys can come up with. If you guys are new to the channel, I basically do a weekly art challenge every single Wednesday where I give you guys a challenge word for the week, and then the following week I do a review video based on that. So for the month of April, I'm not doing any of those, but I'm doing a mega review video on May the 6th. I'm going to pick out one entry from every single day of this April challenge and feature it in the video. So this is one of your chances to be featured in a review video going forward. I'm going to pick a different artist for every single day. So there's going to be no repeat artists, and it's your chance to get featured on the channel. And I really want to see what you guys can come up with. Hope you guys are staying safe out there during this crazy time. Hopefully you guys are staying motivated and drawing stuff. And I think this is a great way. So definitely share this. I want to see what you guys can do. And until next time, keep creating.